Good evening. This is John Bailey. This is People to be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And tonight, you've got Professor Stephen Rolandi, Adjunct Professor of Public Administration at Pace University and John Jay College of Criminal Justice, City University of New York. Mr. Steve, nice to see you again, Professor Rolandi.
Yes, here. Please call me Steve.
Okay, Steve, we'll do.
We'll wait till we start school, and then you can call me Professor. So,
right. Well, Mr. Rolandi analyzed the presidential election per WPCR, PCNR, predicting a Joseph Biden victory. He analyzed successfully the Georgia primary runoff, and you were accurate again on this program when you predicted a successful ascension to the White House when the count was contested. And later you commented on Governor Cuomo's budget troubles. As of Tuesday, Governor Cuomo steps down and Lieutenant Governor Kathleen Hochul will be sworn in. He is here to set the table for us as this happens. She's going to be busy next week, right?
yes, extremely busy, and she's already starting the hard work. She's going to hit the ground running. So I don't know her personally, but I have followed her career. So I think you're going to see a very active and working governor as she starts to tackle the many issues facing New York State. Yes.
So take us down memory lane. You served under David Patterson when he became lieutenant governor after Eliot Spitzer resigned.
Correct.
How effective was he as an unexpected lieutenant governor?
Okay. It was a historic appointment. He was the first African-American governor of our state, and he was actually the first person legally blind. I don't know if many people remember that. Yes, he appointed me deputy commissioner for the New York State Division of Human Rights. He actually did not want to be governor. There was some surprise when Spitzer nominated him to be the lieutenant governor. He actually wanted to be senator because he was anticipating that Hillary Clinton would be elected president in 2008, but that didn't happen. Given his background of being the first African-American minority member, he had a very good record on civil rights and dealing with persons with various disabilities. So, for example, he spearheaded or he put in motion a task force to deal with the various hate crimes that sprouted up all over New York State, 2008 to 2010. You may remember the President Obama stimulus program, and he made sure that there was equitable distribution of funds, infrastructure funds, during that time period. Now, on the flip side, this is where I say the record was mixed. He handled very poorly the selection process for Hillary Clinton's replacement in the Senate. He initially wanted to go with Caroline Kennedy, and that whole thing just fell apart. He ended up appointing Kristen Gillibrand, but there was a lot of criticism. He did not have the best of relations with the state legislature. Some said he was too much of a nice guy. He was able to get a vacancy filled, which is you're going to see this again next week, by asking Richard Ravitch to become the lieutenant governor. But he didn't use Richard Ravitch very well. And at the end of his term, there were numerous scandals. So he decided in February of 2010 not to run for governor for a full term. So some said, he had his problems and he dealt with them as best he could. And he did provide for an orderly transition when Andrew Cuomo came into office. So I would say the record was probably mixed.
Right. How effective do you expect Governor-select Hochul to be? Better, worse, or the same?
Okay, different background. Governor Patterson was in the state Senate for 20 years. Governor Hochul has over 25 years experience at various levels of government. Federal, she was in Congress. She worked for Senator Moynihan, Congressman LaFalce. She was in county government. She was in local government and now lieutenant governor. So she brings to the table over 25 years of experience. She also has significant private sector experience. She did work for a major law firm in Washington, D.C., as well as a major bank along the way. Her style is more retail politics. She knows the state extremely well. She has traveled extensively throughout the state. So I think you're going to see a different type of model here when she becomes governor next week.
I think, what will be the major issues do you see her immediately having to tackle?
Okay, so she's going to have several issues. I think the first one is going to be handling the ongoing COVID crisis. Now, I guess we refer to it as the Delta crisis. The state and the nation are in a better place than where we were over a year ago, but we're not out of the woods. New York State, I should tell you, has one of the highest vaccination rates. We're ahead of the national average. We are in the top 10 of low positivity rates. I'm getting these numbers, by the way, from Johns Hopkins, but we're not out of the woods. We're not in terms of vaccinations, although I did see yesterday 1 million people have been vaccinated in the United States. We're not at the percentage we need to be. You also are going to have the fall season with flu and everything. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done. So I think that's at the top of her list. There's going to be transportation issues, the MTA, the mass transit system. There's new leadership that has to be selected. She has to pick a lieutenant governor. And I think once we know who that is and what her philosophy of working with a lieutenant governor, usually lieutenant governors are standby equipment, that'll give you some indication. There's also issues of the economy, the budgets. Right now, the state budget, which is over $200 billion, and the city budget of New York, we look okay right now, but next year and the year after are going to be real challenges. Why? Because we may expect some effects, negative effects of the Delta variant, plus the infusion of federal money that we have seen from the CARES Act and the stimulus program. That's going to be spent down. And I don't know if we can see more money coming in. You should know that the federal government has a debt ceiling issue that has to be resolved by the fall. And I don't know if that's going to happen and when it will happen. So the state and the city are looking at long-term financial issues. So I think that's what she's going to have to get her hands around, plus this whole issue of public safety. I think it's going to be a good thing that we're going to have a new governor. And in a few months in the city of New York, we're going to have a new mayor. It looks like it's going to be Mr. Adams, former police officer, legislator himself. So, and then you're going to have issues like redistricting and then ongoing ethical and reform. You know, she has pledged to run a toxic-free administration. Yeah. And I probably have left some other, and of course, education. So, you know, she's going to have a very short honeymoon and vacation going in.
Like one day.
Probably, yeah.
One day. Are we going to see a departure of Governor Cuomo, key aides, health commissioner, budget director, etc.? Or is she familiar enough with taking over the budget and the demands of constituencies from God knows where?
Okay, good question. All right, as the lieutenant governor, she obviously is she's on first name basis with the legislators. She knows the state controller very well. He gave an interview the other day. It has been reported that next week, when she becomes governor, she will be signing a series of executive orders for a 45-day period to maintain continuity in government. So that means for the departments and the agency heads, they're going to stay in place for 45 days so she can evaluate their performance and where the agencies are going. Now, I should also say within the executive chamber or the governor's office, there are several key vacancies, which I think she'll fill immediately, such as the counsel to the governor, the secretary to the governor, that's the chief of staff. That was Melissa DeRosa, who has departed. She has to appoint a new director of state operations. So within her immediate circle, I think you're going to see a lot of changes. Will she replace the budget director? I doubt it. Bob Mujica is doing a great job. You may see her replace the health commissioner, just given the COVID crisis we still have. And as I said, I think you're going to see her name new leadership for the MTA.
Any idea on how she feels about the situation with COVID in New York State right now? Is she for more controls again, or is she going to take a wait and see attitude? Any idea on that?
Good question. It's a good question. I think her approach or the challenge that she's going to have is what you see in other states. Just think of California, Florida, Texas. There is pressure to reopen the schools. Many parents do not want to see a mask mandate imposed. I think she's going to have to enforce that, if only for a short period of time, just to see how things go. Now, if you look at it, if you believe the experts, they say you're going to see a bigger spike in the COVID variant cases, but then they say that may drop. So maybe she'll adjust things as we go along.
It's really right.
She strikes me as a very pragmatic public official.
Well, pragmatism is what is needed here, and we haven't seen that from the legislature for about 3 weeks now.
Yeah, I would say, John, watch her for the next 2 to 3 months. I think that's going to be a critical period for her.
Right.
And also, she's indicated she wants to run for a full term. So now, this is going to be her, how shall we say, probation period to see how well she does, because she's going to want to convince New Yorkers that she wants a full term as governor.
Right. Is she a decision maker or a go along consensus builder in style?
I think she is a decision maker. If you go back to the time when she was the acting county clerk in Erie County, that's the Buffalo area, she defied Governor Spitzer when he wanted to loosen up the requirements to give everybody a driver's license. She basically held her line and said, I don't want persons who their citizenship status is pending. She didn't want to give it. When she was in Congress, she was only served one term. She said she is pro-choice. She supported the Affordable Care Act, but she said she's an independent Democrat. So she didn't necessarily toe the party line. But you're going to see, the proof is going to be when she comes in and she's got all these issues that she has to deal with. And they're going to be hard issues. And I'm sure I think she'll have her honeymoon. I think she's a breath of fresh air, but I think she's going to have hard issues, and I'm sure she's going to offend some people when she gets into things. She is consulting, but she is consulting with a lot of people. She met with Mayor de Blasio the other day. She is going around the state. It's a different style. We'll see.
Where do you see COVID right now? Is Albany now of a mindset that it's over and going away and we will grow less and less, even though it is third wave here in Westchester and NYC, Nassau, Suffolk, and New Jersey?
I don't think legislators are going to ignore this. You look at the numbers. I'll just give you New York. This is yesterday from Johns Hopkins. 66% of New Yorkers got their first dose. 54% got a second dose. The president has announced a booster program. That's higher than the national averages. We're not out of the woods. I think you're going to see pressure I think your first flashpoint are going to be the schools. Parents don't want to have their kids home for extended period if they want to go back to work. So what is she going to propose to the legislature? You're seeing pushback in several states. Just watch the national news. Texas, California, Florida, you're seeing pushback with parents when they're having PTA meetings. They don't want the mandates imposed. But we've got a growing, you're going to see, I think experts say you're going to see a spike with the COVID variant. And then they expect later in the fall it's going to recede. There's a lot about this virus we don't know yet.
No, certainly not.
So I don't think they can ignore it. I think the legislature will probably look to Governor Hochul to take the lead.
Right. Does the legislature have to do anything about anything this fall?
Okay, good question. The legislature is out of session. The speaker said that the Assembly Judiciary Committee will be issuing a final report. She can call the legislature back into session. Their regular session will be January. Now, I think they have some issues. One is they're going to have to extend or modify the eviction moratorium. That's coming up. That deadline's coming up, I believe, the end of this month. And I think it overhangs the next month. They have to deal with redistricting, okay? Under the current law, many states are dealing with redistricting because now we have the final census results. New York State's going to lose one seat in the House, and they have to realign the districts for Congress, plus the Assembly and the legislature. So under the law right now, those deadlines are going to hit in January. However, a lot of people don't know this. I only found this out the other day. Come November, the voters in our state are going to have a referendum to amend the state constitution to advance the deadlines on redistricting. So they're going to have redistricting. They're going to have the eviction moratorium to deal with. And if she does change department heads, the departments, some of them require Senate confirmation. So you have this 45-day period I referred to. She probably, if she names new people, the legislature is going to have to come back and vote on those. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a special session in the fall.
Looks like a real mess already. Well, if you see another, Letitia James and Andrea Stewart, cousins, and Tom Suozzi are three persons who want to be the next governor of New York. Can Ms. Hochul stand alone against the carping that she is going to be faced with? Patterson, as I recall, could not.
Right. Okay. Interesting you mentioned that. There was a study done by 538.com, and they said since in the year 2008, there were 13 governors around the nation who resigned. They either resigned or they had to leave office because of a scandal like Spitzer, or they were appointed to another position. In those 13 cases, 10 of the 13 replacements who were the lieutenant governor like Patterson, 10 of the 13 got a full term. One state was New York, where the incumbent couldn't run. That was decided not to run. That was Patterson. Kansas was another one, and I don't remember the third state. Her challenge is not going to be in the general election because we are a very blue state. Her challenge is going to be in the primary. I suspect it's going to come from the left wing. Suozzi, who ran for governor once, I think he's going to stay in the House because the Democrats want to hold on to the House. Andrea Stewart Cousins, I believe, will stay where she is as the majority leader of the Senate. She's acting lieutenant governor on Tuesday. Letitia James might run. She might run for governor. And I think you might see a challenge from the left. I even heard the other day there was a possibility that AOC may run for governor. The young congresswoman from the Bronx. So I think she probably will expect a challenge, my guess, in the primary. And of course, we have a state convention. There's a designated convention in May or June of next year, and then you go to a primary in September, I guess. So probably, yes, she probably will have a challenge. But she's already started campaigning. She's already started raising money for a race. And
go ahead.
One other thought, and this is where the selection of the lieutenant governor will give you some indication as to how she wants to run a campaign. She probably will go to downstate, probably New York City, and the names being bandied about are Hispanic or African American. Some of them are legislators. I heard Brian Benjamin, state senator from Harlem, Ruben Diaz, borough president from the Bronx, Freddie Ferrer. The name I would tell you to keep your eye on is a young assemblywoman from Brooklyn, from Flatbush. She is the current chair of the Brooklyn Kings County Democratic Party, and that's Rodneyse Bishote. She is the daughter of Haitian immigrants. She's an engineer by training. The speculation is if she went with her, it would enable Governor Hochul to break into the Brooklyn Queens base. You have to remember she had a very close primary in 2018 against Giovanni Williams. So I think the lieutenant governor nominee may be or appointment should be somebody strategic for the election. And I think the new governor is looking for a working partner. So we'll see.
We'll see. Do Republicans, with this Afghanistan disaster that President Biden has presided over, have a real chance to upset either woman candidate, but what would have perhaps a harder time against a male like Suozzi or perhaps George Latimer?
Okay. If the midterm elections were this fall, I could see that as a potential problem, but the president is taking his lumps. Let's just look at the opinion polls. But frankly, foreign affairs, defense issues rank at the bottom of issues Americans are concerned about: the economy, immigration, safety, unless there's a terrorist attack, God forbid, or we're involved in another war. So I think 15 months from now, Afghanistan may not be an issue. The Republican Party, and I'm a Republican, I'm an old Rockefeller Republican, is in a very weak situation in New York. In terms of the enrollment, there's more than two to one margin the Democrats have over the Republicans. The last time the GOP won a statewide election for governor was 2002, George Pataki. The last time we won a presidential election in the state was Ronald Reagan. Biden won 61% of the total vote in New York last fall. And he carried every single town and village in the county, our county. So Republicans are in a very weak situation. I think Hochul's bigger challenge, as I said earlier, will be in the primary.
Mhm.
Unless then again, I don't know, who knows? Maybe you'll have a four-way race for governor next year, and maybe a Republican could win. But is it
Right,
possible?
right. Yeah, if you
Yes.
have a
Likely.
split votes, yeah.
Possible, yes. Likely, I don't think so.
Right. What new policies can we expect the new governor to press as part of her legislative agenda? What's she
Okay.
going to be really high on?
Well, the major issues obviously are the budget, transportation, public safety, economic development, COVID. I think she's probably in a position similar to where President Ford was, where she's going to announce that the atmosphere, the environment, she wants it to be toxic free. She's going to want to see more integrity. She's going to want to see reform. She's going to want to clean the Aegean stables. All right. So I think that watch what she says formally. She's going to be sworn in privately Tuesday morning, Monday night, and then when she has her first public statements, pronouncements, see what direction she's going to give.
I see. Well, Professor Rolandi, do you have some final thoughts as we go into what is promises to be 2 years of turmoil?
Well, there's going to be challenges, and I've noted those for you, financial, the transportation, public safety. If you look at her style, which seems to be more collegial, more retail politics, I believe she's positioned, she can do it. She can do a pretty good job. How she'll wrestle with the issues, how she'll propose solutions, that's going to remain to be seen. She probably, look, a good leader has to disappoint people from time to time. And she may do this, she may have to do the same thing, but that's what leadership is all about.
Well,
Anybody can be popular, but that's not leadership. So we'll see. Let's see how she goes the next several weeks and months.
well, Professor Rolandi, thank you very much for
Thank you.
commenting on this historical moment in New York State history. And you have been heard.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Right.
Be
You
well.
too.
Take
Sean
care.
Bailey saying good night for people
Good
to
night.
be heard.